Welcome back, climbers. I'm your co-host, Kaylee Floyd, and this is another episode of Climbing Mount CMMC. Hello, guys, and welcome to our last and final episode of Climbing Mount CMMC Season 1. I cannot believe that we are here
Get a little
today.
teary-eyed, a little misty.
I can't believe that this is going to be our 22nd episode that we are going to be posting today with so many guests that have joined us in this season 1. So
That
many
was a
amazing.
shocker,
Oh my
wasn't it?
gosh, it was
We had
so
such
great.
great participation.
Yeah, they were amazing. Every single one of them was so memorable. Today we are going to be talking about some of our favorite moments of season 1, and also even sharing you guys like little clips here and there of things that we loved, moments that we loved with our guests, with each other, and whatnot. And it genuinely was very difficult for me to pick between all of these
It's like
episodes.
picking your favorite kids.
I know.
Well, so it just kind of gives us an opportunity to kind of let our hair down.
I love how you did that.
Yeah, to let our hair down and just sort of talk about the season more from a satellite perspective, right? Just to kind of get an idea of how we felt. I couldn't have been happier with all the guests that we've had, the topics that we've talked about. I mean, just to kind of double down on our focus of what we're really trying to accomplish here with this podcast is for MSPs that are considering getting into space, what does it look like? What do they need to know? What's the information we want to share? And then if you're looking at hiring an MSP, what would you want to expect from them? What should they be thinking about? Because I think that's when you're getting engaged with a managed service provider, it is probably one of the most important things if you're doing a CMMC journey as a company that's going to eventually have to get certified. If you're an SMB and you're going to have to hire a managed service provider or maybe someone to do more of the SIM and SOC or just anybody that's outsourced, watching this podcast would be hugely instrumental in helping you try to understand not only what you're going to have to do, but what you need to be careful and thinking about when you're involving a third party such as an MSP like ourselves.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, we had, just like how Bobby said and I said previously, the guests that came on to show different perspectives. So although this is, we call it Climbing Mount CMMC, it might be one mountain, it might be, from our perspective, our journey, we also got a lot of other people's perspectives and a lot of others' journeys along the way, right? Some of them looked different than ours. Some of these MSPs that we had on, some of these vendors are climbing this mountain in a whole different way, which is just so interesting to listen to hear their feedback, and to get their perspective on the journey for them even. So I hope that, our listeners enjoyed seeing those different perspectives as well on the podcast. So without further ado, I guess we'll get into the first part of this podcast, which I kind of wanted to start it off in a lighter note with one of which I'll say mine, you say yours, funniest moments from season 1, which I was looking back at some of these, and I'm not gonna lie, there were some that I was literally, as the producer, not even being seen on some of these episodes, laughing so hard. Matt made me laugh so hard. Matt Lee, when he was on, he was cracking me up with sometimes, and yeah, there was this one moment where he said, which this isn't what I'm going to say, but I just have to add this. He said, "Come closer," and he got really close to the camera to say his perspective, and I was dying laughing at the other side. He's just so funny. So
we unwisely thought this is going to be one episode. Like, no, when you get Matt involved, his passion, it's going to be a two-parter for sure.
Yes. So I have to ask, before I share mine, Bobby, do you have one that you want to highlight about maybe some of the funniest moments from season 1 of Climbing Mount CMMC?
It's more about pets and family members that
the pets,
my son, just when he sneezes, it always comes in triplets, and it's probably one of the loudest, as well as my wife. And you know what they sound like. They can sometimes startle you out of your skin because they are so loud, and so you'll hear that in the background. I have this cat Her name is Belle, and she loves to play fetch. And she will, like, you see how the door's kind of cracked in the background. She'll kind of peek it in, and she'll come in and go, "Hey, I see you're standing up, so let's play fetch. I want you to shoot a hair tie, and I want to chase it." So she comes in. She's sitting right next to me. Look at me like, now sounds like a good time right now. Yeah. So that if you see, like, during the podcast the door kind of crack open but nobody come in, it's my cat. That's probably one of my more funnier things. And then it just seems like, and as well as others will have their dogs just go bananas sometimes we're doing recording.
It's true. It's true. Absolutely.
Oh, sorry about that. That's my dog. Hopefully
no,
you're
good.
Out.
Oh, I can totally. Yeah, I can definitely edit it out.
There's probably a delivery person. Yes, there is. There's a delivery person outside, so she goes nuts.
You want to get the right fit. And
oh, hold on. Don't bark. He said, "Oh, Captain." Yeah, and I think that leads to one of the funnier moments for me as well is, okay, she's also one of my favorites that we've had on, is Karen Stanford. And something that was so funny about recording her episode is she was so passionate about the topic, which this is what I love about her. She was so passionate about the topic. She started sharing stuff before we started fully recording.
Really, yes. Like, this is gold, she's sharing.
Yeah, before we started recording the episode. And so Bobby was like, "Oh, hold on, Karen. Let me get this down. You're saying good stuff. Yeah. Don't say it too soon.
Just wait. We're going to hit record. We haven't done it yet.
Yeah, let us do it." I love her for that, because it's just, she's so fun when she just gets really passionate into I mean, Matt Lee as well, but so does Karen. She gets really passionate into the topics. But one of my favorite parts, which really threw me off when you first said it, I believe it was your first podcast with Adam, which I'll clip it here, but you talk about something as, which you can share a little bit more about this, marriage counseling.
Oh, yeah. About this before in previous podcasts about the kind of that, marriage counseling for CMMC. I think you did a good job of explaining. I'll let you talk about that one.
And that's
a coined phrase that we've started using around here.
That has popped up a couple of times now in season 1. So do you want to explain your catchphrase now that you've created with that?
It's just kind of our analogy or example of when organizations like a managed service provider and someone that has to get certified, they both kind of decide that they're going to, like, go to marriage counseling. They're going to find some company that's going to counsel them through their CMMC journey together. And, like, somehow at the end, they're going to get married, have vows, and, like, it's going to say, credits, and it's going to be beautiful. And it just doesn't, it's such a huge deal, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want any of those two parties to leave in that process, because then both lose. And so you really want to make sure that you partner with someone who's going to be like, I've already been there, or I'm doing it, because it's such a huge commitment. And I see a lot of organizations doing that kind of marriage counseling, and it's scary. It just scares me.
Yeah. It definitely threw me off when you first said it, and made me laugh when I wasn't there when you guys were recording that episode, but editing it back was quite funny. I was like, do I keep this in? Was this purposeful? And then by the the 8th time or so that you shared it in an episode, I was like, I think this is pretty sure this is here to stay. Yeah. Maybe we just need to make merch about it instead of just keep it a thing.
I see a shirt in the future.
I love it. So let's switch to the second thing that I want to talk about, which I called it the smackdown moment, which is basically one of the harder hitting moments from season 1, something that has stood out to you as something that really, like, slapped you in the face, I guess you could say, when recording from either a guest or maybe something that you researched when preparing for an episode. So what would you say was yours for season 1?
Well, there's so many SmackDown moments in there where I was like, "Ooh, that's a good clip right there." You hit it on our intro. Like, you created a clip that sort of was kind of teasing people about what to expect, because for those that may not know that, like, Kaylee does a great job of getting episodes queued up. So people that will record with us, a lot of times it'll be a month or two before their episode actually gets done. And before we were doing it, you had like 5 or 6 episodes in before we actually released the first one. And
Right.
so because of that, you were able to create a trailer. And one of the ones that you did was the first recording we did with Brian Hubbard. And we actually did it at CS2 Denver, which if you've never attended a Summit 7 CS2 conference, those guys put on a great show.
Oh, yeah.
And when I was there, we did an in-person interview, and Brian said something that I thought was great. Is I asked him the question. I wasn't exactly sure what he was going to say. And I was like, if you're hiring an MSP, what would you expect from them? And Brian just like immediately snapped back. I expect them to show up. Like if I'm doing the assessment and I'm the assessor, I expect the MSP to show up to the assessment, and they got to be, ready to present the best posture for their client. And I was just like, whoa, I get it, but he so eloquently just nailed it. And I thought that was just, and that was our first episode. And I thought that at that moment, I kind of said, ooh, I got something special here. I think people are going to be really sharing some things that are passionate.
Yeah.
The second one would be Amira when she was talking about her templates and how she was going through that.
I was just about to talk about her. Yeah.
Her kind of smackdown process that she was talking about was just about how the devil's in the details about the documentation piece. I thought that was really good. And I think Joe also did a great job in his closing us out, talking about when you're bringing on a consultant, whether it's a managed service provider or just someone that's going to help guide you through the journey, just looking for expectations. Joe's passion is just second to none in the industry, as well as both Amira, and both of them just provided such great insight. And every podcast, I'm always learning something, taking notes. And it's just been really a blessing to have so many great people attend. And we're going to have some more in the next season.
I know, we're going to talk about that.
Haven't been there. We're going to be having, hopefully, Joe come back from DefCert to talk about some Rev 3 stuff. DefCert has been really leading the charge on what you have to think about when you're going to be considering going from revision 2 to revision 3. So a little bit of a teaser there.
I love it. Yeah.
We didn't really shy away from asking some tough questions, man. I really threw some very tough ones at Karen.
You definitely did. Yeah.
What about this? What about this? And she just didn't bat an eye and just leaned right in. That's one of the things I love about her passion. And we've tried to do that. And I did the same thing with Karen, the same with everybody. And some of we've already recorded some stuff for season 2. And we've been even doing that more with some of the guests, asking some very tough questions. And I just love the guests that we have had so far in season 1 because they didn't shy away. Like we do this recorded, right? And sometimes we make a mistake and we kind of edit it. But when we're asking those tough questions, we never once edited those. Everybody just didn't bat an eye. We've just been really great to have just people that didn't shy away from those types of topics.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. And that leads into, I think my SmackDown moment, which, again, I'll clip all of these in afterwards, but I loved, and I believe it was part 1 of your episode with Matt Lee, where it was the 10 things MSPs should be doing right now. He says, well, you should be doing what you say you're doing. and it kind of has to do with, it's like, well, duh, but like, shoot, we should be doing what we're saying we're doing. Because, if you look at the CMMC journey, there's a lot of these things that the assumption is that you're already doing these things internally as well, right? And a lot of people are not, and they say they are. And so I just love how Matt just came out just guns a-blazing. He was like, well, you should be doing what you say you're doing, And it was so simple, but yet so true of like, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
He was also, we're like, whoa, Matt, we haven't hit record yet, buddy.
I know.
Come on. Because he's like, put me in, coach. I'm ready to go. Like he really had a passion. And, with the CMMC journey, they have these things called NFO controls. And these controls were assumptions that the NIST organization, as well as the bodies that were working jointly on it, felt that organizations would probably already be doing. And as an MSP, you would expect that you would be doing that as well. And just really being transparent here, like as we have been getting better as an organization, as we've been preparing, I have been shocked at it's really opened my eyes to things that we should be doing better as a community for managed service providers, speaking to myself as well as everybody in the space, as well as just us, Axiom as a company. You know, we've gotten better. We've been improving in how we've been doing things.
Right.
And no matter what happens in the shakedown with the CMMC ecosystem, anybody who's involved in it and has been applying these policies, you're going to be a better company for it if you really take them seriously. And I think the thing that I love about Matt's and ours kind of session is we really wanted to try to help an MSP or an OSC that's going for this. What are things that you really should have first before you try to take a charge at the hill? These are the passing and blocking before you even try to get on the field to try to win a game. Like, what are the things you should be doing? And that podcast did such a great job of outlining that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say too about Matt's episode that we had to split into two parts, like I used because it got so into it, was I really think that it did an incredible job of making what was not seeming tangible at first tangible.
Right.
And a lot of our guests on here did and do an incredible job at that. Amira is another example. Shel Phillips is a great example of that. Brian is a great example of that. The MSP community, I feel like, is better now with what these people are bringing to the game. Like, I mean, what Brian Hubbard is doing, what Shel is doing. I mean, there's so many people on here. What Joy is doing, they're all bringing to the table these things that are making the community better.
Right.
And it's like, that's why I was like, a SmackDown moment. I'm like, these people are doing some incredible things, and we're just happy to be a part of their journey. Yes. Like, I mean, MSPs for the protection of critical infrastructure. I did not know about that. Right. I did not know about that at all until we did our podcast. But wow, they're doing some great things over there. And same with the podcast that I did with Brian for the MSP CyberX. I mean, I loved doing that podcast with him. He did a great job. And I am so excited to see where his journey leads, for that stuff. So
I think that's
so
going to be huge. I'm really excited about that. As well as just being part of working with him. Brian's such a great guy. And Shel's podcast that he did, I think, was so low-key critical. Because if you're totally trying to get involved in anything, whether let's just put CMMC on the sideline for a second. Shel's implementation for the CIS templates that he has is second to none that I've seen. His templates and how you can apply them and start looking at your organization and start comparing how you as an MSP. Because if you're picking an MSP, you should be able to go to your MSP and say, hey, show evidence that you eat your own dog food. Give me your system security plan. Show me what you got. And if you get Shel's templates and just before you even try to do the journey, you just actually implement them inside your managed service provider. And then you start trying to tackle going after CMMC. Boy, I would have loved to have had that maturity before we started our CMMC journey. It would have been a whole heck of a lot easier for us. We didn't have as good a grasp on compliance as when we started this journey. So we really started from the parking lot starting the race. We kind of just, we heard the starter pistol, we just took off, right? From our car. and that's sort of how I felt, a few years ago as we started trying to get into this. And it has been quite a challenge. Whereas if an MSP now had been doing those types of things, and then they started trying to get in the space, boy, it's not as hard a lift. And so that's another part that we've been really trying to communicate in this podcast to everybody listening, is it is so much easier of a journey if you have already been doing a lot of the things that NIST has kind of assumed that we have been doing all along.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And there's a lot of episodes where we even mention, I mean, even with Joe's that we just did, of like, oh, if you implement some of the things that he's saying, the questions that you should ask for starting, wow, will this be a lot easier of a process? Not saying it will be an easy process. Right. Easier of a process it will be. So let's move on to the last topic I want to talk about, which is the shock factor moment. Was there something during season 1 that you heard from somebody else, or maybe you researched, that shocked you, that you were not expecting?
Shock factor. I would just say, Karen, just because I haven't come from a FedRAMP background, and Karen's had such a tremendous amount of experience in it, and that's a lot of what this program, the CMMC program, has. It's sort of the lens a lot of this has been looked at through, to some extent, from the DoD's perspective, is building that CMMC program. Is they're really trying to incorporate as much as they can from the ground they've already taken by implementing FedRAMP. And so her ability to kind of look at her experience at the FedRAMP environment and kind of using it as an opportunity to read the tea leaves about how CMMC program is going to go has been really interesting in helping me as a company start to try to plan how, as we're working with our clients, the safer path to help get them prepared. Because what you don't want to do is get a client what you believe is ready, and then as you start to see more clarity on some of these things like tooling and other type stuff like that, you've put the client in a potentially susceptible to not making a met versus what you don't want to have is unmet in your assessment. And so for me, I just thought Karen's did such a great job of providing clarity, as well as helping us to try to understand that a lot of the assessors that are going to be in the community that you might potentially get as a C3PO to audit you as well as your client, you need to understand where they're coming from. Do they have much SMB experience? Are they mostly working in the FedRAMP experience? And if that's the case, then they may be looking at you from a different perspective than what you're not used to being looked at.
Right, great point.
Because they're just such a larger, and it's a different beast. And they won't be able to speak necessarily the same language that you speak. And because there hasn't been happening a ton of assessments yet, mostly of them happening through joint assessment or readiness assessments in organizations, a ton of assessors in the community haven't had an opportunity to really cut their teeth at the level that anybody would feel comfortable with, to feel like they've really understood how to implement the NIST framework in a production environment for manufacturing for large scale. There's just not a lot of experience about doing that through the CMMC program.
Right.
Now there's a lot of people that have been in the industry for a lot of years, and they understand the 171 and 171A framework, but understanding it about how it kind of works together with MSPs and that ecosystem through the CMMC program, it's just a little bit different, and I think it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think for me, the shock factor moment was when you and I sat down and talked about pricing. Like, what is it going to cost an MSP to start this journey? Which we don't have the 100% answer, but we were able to be very vulnerable with what has happened and what it has costed us as a company. And that was very shocking to me. I think it was shocking to you as well when you were doing the research into actually
it
how
definitely
much it
was.
had. Yeah.
Well, I just didn't really think, when you start thinking about it as if you're an MSP and you're gonna go for it. You want to get level 2 yourself. If you've made that decision, it's going to take 1 to 2 people inside your organization dedicated almost full time, if not totally full time.
Which some people have no idea that is going to be the case.
Right. That you don't. Okay. So you're going to need at least 1 to 2 people that you're going to basically write off for 8 months to a year.
Yeah.
To happen. And then on top of that, you're paying that person, right, a salary. Now, do you get your intern to implement your CMMC program? No, you've got to have somebody that's got experience. So that's not going to be a low salaried person. So that immediately raises the bar cost wise. Right. And then all the tools, all the licenses, the containers, the framework, everything going to be well north of $250,000. And an MSP looks at that and goes, oh, wait, okay, so I have to write 1 or 2 people off. I have to pay at least $250,000 in cost. And what do I get I get the participation award of being involved in the CMMC program.
Right.
And that's why you've seen a lot of MSPs just not really get in that space quite yet, because I think they're looking at that and they're sort of doing the math. But I think there is a lot more to it than that. We're going to do a podcast and speaking, I think, to the reasons why you would want to do that in season 2, because we desperately need more people participating, and it's not a cry for help. I think there's a lot of wisdom and reasons why an MSP should be in that space.
Yes.
And we'll definitely cover that in season 2.
Yes, in season 2, we have a lot coming. But before we talk about season 2, I just want to celebrate the guy on the other side of the screen from me. Bobby has done 22 now episodes of hosting this podcast, and has done a great job, including, guests that have really added to this episode. So thank you, Bobby, for all that you've done with continuing those episodes and talking to these people and interviewing them very well. So we do have a little something for you, which I think it should be coming in to the door. Let me see. I gotta check with my assistant.
Your assistant?
Yeah. It looks like my assistant's bringing it in now. Oh, thank you so much for bringing it in.
I might want to turn the fan off. I don't want this balloons to get in. Oh, you got a mug?
Yeah, it looks like, for those of you guys who are joining us from the podcast side of things, we've got this Climbing Mount CMMC mug for him. And we've also got you a nice little shirt there so you can be all swagged out.
So cool. Man, you guys are good at keeping secrets.
Yeah, we're pretty good at what we do. What can I say?
And it's a 2XL, so it's gonna it's gonna fit my belly there.
My assistant seems to know you very well. Look at that. Ain't she a beaut?
Awesome, man.
Now who all wants one?
Yeah.
Right.
Ready.
So if you guys like, if this
is Judy,
episode,
my wife, in case you're wondering.
Hi Judy, hello, welcome.
That's awesome, man.
If the video gets at least 100 likes, I think we need to start making some merch, like this for everybody. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So congratulations, season 1. The balloons.
Thank you. That was a huge surprise. That
Nice.
was wow. I didn't see that coming.
Thank you.
Man, you guys are stealth.
We're really quiet with it all, So, I wanted to celebrate that season 1 has been such a success, but also we have literally already started, like how Bobby was saying, on season 2. It is starting off with a bang, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We've got people coming back like Brian and Shel that are getting into some pretty heated topics, I might say.
Yeah.
So I am very excited.
But it was all very positive.
No, but Shel was really hitting.
Oh, he
some
brought
points
it.
There.
He really brought it. I think I'll just a little taste is like Shel went through and broke down, like, if you're doing a contract, like what kind of clauses would be in there. And then Shel basically kind of did my job beautifully, by the way, as he went through and he talked with Brian, who is a CMMC certified assessor, and kind of said, okay, based on this contract, what are these requirements that are going to be followed? What does it look like? Where are you looking at your contracts? I think it opened my eyes as well as anybody in this space about how many things get pulled into the DFARS and FARS clauses and all these things in the contracts that when you're getting involved in that space, your client is going to have a requirement. And man, that was such a great podcast. I can't wait for that one to drop.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Shel was throwing it at Brian, and Brian was taking it and throwing it right back.
Out. Yeah.
He was killing it. I really enjoyed sitting in on that one.
I did too.
And yeah, that one's going to be a good one. We've got some other pretty good ones coming our way. So let me give some examples, maybe.
Well, while you're bringing those up, I think another one that I'm really pumped about coming up is, we're going to have Joe come back and talk. Maybe he might be joined by Ryan. We're not sure. We're still trying to work out schedules. But regardless, we're just going to try to talk about the NIST framework for 800-171. It's currently in revision 2, and revision 3 is out and as far as in the proposed, and it's going to be finalized this year. And that's really got a lot of people's heads spinning about how that's going to impact the CMMC journey for a lot of people. And I would say there's nobody better at talking about that than they are.
Yeah. And also, we recorded one to how to train for your CCP and CCA with Matt Hubbard. And that one was so much fun to listen in on. And
such a great guy.
I mean, again, very practical, very straightforward, very upfront. I really enjoyed having him, and I think you guys will learn so much from that podcast. Because I mean, listen, he answered some questions that you gave him that were, pretty pointed and pretty straightforward, and he took it and he went for it. So I loved that episode. I'm really excited to post that one as well. So it looks like we have come to a close.
Well, Kaylee, I'd like to say thank you on your participation in the production side of things, because a lot of times when we were doing the recording, Kaylee's in the production studio section of we use Riverside for our podcast. He
hides me.
Yeah, and so
everybody.
We can hear her in our ears when she's talking to us, and it's like, we're getting divine inspiration. It's like, hey guys, you forgot to say this, this, and this. You need to make sure that you cover this, and she helps keep us on track. So thank you, Kaylee, as well, for helping it be such a huge success.
Well, I have had so much fun. I mean, I said this earlier, but I've learned so much. I've had so much fun. I really hope you guys have enjoyed it or had even just half as much fun as I have listening to all of these podcasts. Thank you guys for tuning in, for listening, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to us or watching us. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we are excited to continue to give you content and continue to strive for honesty and truth as we continue on our CMMC journey. So I guess.
And so we're going to take a little bit of a break, right? But then another thing is if you have suggestions on topics or things that you would like us to kind of really push on, let us know. Message me on LinkedIn. Hit us in the comments on some of the podcasts that we've done through whatever media that you happen to find us on. Those are huge helps for us. And then, I haven't been really hitting the conference circuit this year as much just because of the fact that I've been so focused on us being ready to just be one of the first MSPs to get level 2 certified. But eventually next year, we should be hitting more of those conferences. And we do. If you see me in the hallways, grab me. I love to talk about CMMC, and I'm always available to discuss anything at all.
Yeah, great point. Well, with that, I guess the only thing we have left to say is we'll see you in season 2 and keep on climbing. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube to stay up to date on the latest CMMC news. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and listen out for the next one. But until then, keep on climbing.